Well, hello everybody and welcome to Lunch Break Live, real talk about obesity, food addiction, recovery, and what's really eating you. I am Carrie De La Cruz here on a Halloween day in the United States, and that makes it the day after Halloween over there in New Zealand where all my Kiwi friends are, and I'd like to welcome you all in and just see how you're all doing. Just touching base with you on this, my Monday, some people's Tuesday mornings. How are we all doing? I'm looking to see, all right. Marlene is here. Welcome, welcome. I'm so glad that you're joining me. I hope my mama should be popping up anytime. And I'm also hoping that you guys can hear me. If you can, shoot me some thumbs up or some happy faces or some pumpkin faces. Since it's Halloween, let me know that you guys can hear me. And I know there's a little bit of a lag between Facebook and my live. So if you guys are frantically shooting me thumbs up and I just can't see them, that is why. So, all right, well, I'm not seeing anything just yet. I do see Marlene there holding fast though, and that matters. All right, well, alrighty, I see some stuff floating by so you guys can hear me. Great. I have learned my lesson not to talk for 20 minutes while people are frantically shooting me messages because they can't hear me. I've learned to wait, and that, my friends, is called patience. So anyway, I'm really happy to be here, and I am talking about a weighty topic today, all right? And I thought the time had come, you know, like I love to say, I never know what I'm going to talk about on the show. And this is one of those things that came up for a number of reasons, not the least of which is the fact that Obesity Week, which is the American Society of Metabolic and Bariatric Surgeons, along with the Obesity Society, Obesity Week is happening this week in New Orleans. Okay, so it's off and running, and I think it's really interesting. A couple of years ago, they did change the name to Obesity Week, and I have gone for, you know, this is the first year I haven't been in many, many years, and it's really weird. You know, when I would check into the hotel and I'd say, I'm here for Obesity Week, what do you think they would say at the front desk? Really? Because you don't look fat. Or you don't look like you have a problem. And you'd hear people muttering, Obesity Week, what is that? Is that like a bunch of fat people? I mean, it is weird, okay? So to call something Obesity Week as if you're celebrating obesity, or I don't know, it's very odd. It's kind of a conundrum, and it brought up a lot of, I would say, conflicting emotions and thoughts, understandably. I mean, who really understands this stuff? And so it occurred to me today that maybe I should throw this out there to see what you guys are thinking about, because I certainly remember what I was thinking about and the things I think about now. And I thought, you know what, let me see what you guys are thinking. So I'm going to ask you questions, spend a lot of time on questions, and I really want you guys to think, give me some feedback, and let me know how you're feeling as I say these things. You ready? So today I am talking about obesity. Is it a disease or not? Does it really matter? Okay? All right. So first and foremost, obesity. I say the word obesity. How do you feel when I say that word? How do you feel? Good morning, Diana. I'm so glad you're here. How do you guys feel when I say the word obesity? Do you feel angry, ashamed, justified? How about relieved, forgiven, validated? Nothing? You know, that's a possible option too. Maybe it means nothing to you. Maybe it doesn't carry any weight. Okay. What about if I put the word morbid in front of it? So now I've got morbid obesity, all right? How do you guys feel when I say that word? Do you feel humiliated, overwhelmed, responsible, legitimized, labeled, defined, misunderstood, helpless, responsible? A lot of words, maybe none of those words, all right? Maybe different words, which I hope you guys will share with me. Do you think of the word obesity as a descriptor, a word that describes you as a person? Do you think of obesity as a disease? Do you think the word obesity is shaming? Do you think there's a difference between the word obesity and the word fat? Does it matter to you whether or not obesity is considered a disease? Do you ever use the word obesity to describe yourself? And when you do use it, if you use it, are you using it to describe how you look? All right. If you believe you have a disease, does that make you more or less motivated to treat it? Let's see here. Do you think obesity is a disease? Do you think the word obesity is shaming? Do you think there is a difference between the word obesity and the word fat? Does it matter to you whether or not obesity is considered to be a disease? Do you ever use that word to describe yourself? If you believe that you have a disease, does that make you more or less motivated to treat it? Are you more or less likely to discuss your weight with a doctor if you don't think obesity is a disease? Do you think your doctor believes obesity is a disease? Do you feel judged by your doctor? Do you judge yourself more or less harshly if you think obesity is a disease? Do you judge yourself more or less harshly if you think obesity is not a disease? Is obesity about how you look? Can you be obese if you don't look obese? Are you automatically obese because you look obese? Does it really matter if other people think obesity is a disease? Lot to think about here, don't you think? Yeah. All right. So before I go too much further into this discussion today, I think there is a benefit to calling obesity a disease. I mean, there is, obviously, because it creates opportunities for treatment, right? In other words, if it's a disease, then it's not a character judgment. And what that means is insurance companies are going to be expected to pay for treatment, right? So there is an advantage to calling obesity a disease. Do you guys agree with me on that one? But I am not talking about that today because I am not a professional. I don't have any letters after my name. You love to hear me say that, right? But it's absolutely true. And I'm really not here to argue the merits, of calling obesity a disease or not calling it one or anything else. I am not discussing any of that. But I am bringing this stuff up about the feelings and about society and about how society views it and how you view it and how you think your doctor views it, stuff like that, okay? So that's why I'm bringing it up. Because I think it is necessary for us to look at the fact that if obesity is considered a disease and that can make treatment options more readily available, then that's important. That's really good, right? All right. But when it comes right down to it, it doesn't change the way we think or feel about ourselves. I don't think. Not really. I mean, maybe on the outside we say, oh, good. Now maybe I'm justified, or maybe, you'll think less harshly of me if it's called a disease and it's in a book. And then you won't think I'm fat and lazy and stuff like that. And maybe so, Other people are going to say, well, I don't like you to judge me or label me and limit me. There's a broad range of opinions, viewpoints, feelings, experiences on this spectrum, okay? A little bit of history about me. In 2007, I had weight loss surgery to treat my morbid obesity. Isn't that interesting? It was not called obesity surgery. It was called weight loss surgery and the focus was on losing weight to treat obesity. But I think we all talk about the fact that obesity is made up of a whole bunch of comorbidities, and there's that word again, morbidities, right? A whole bunch of things. And on the one hand, you could say losing weight has been shown to resolve a lot of those things, you know, like type 2 diabetes, without even losing a pound, by the way, on the table. So it affects you metabolically, right? To have weight loss surgery, this more aptly named bariatric surgery, but a lot of people call it WLS, weight loss surgery. And that seems to be the motivation, the factor. Lose weight, instead of treat. So in other words, look different, have the scale tell you something different, appear on a BMI chart differently. That is the focus, that is the emphasis, what you weigh. So that's really not looking at it as a disease, not entirely. Maybe it's looking at it kind of as a syndrome and saying, okay, we're going to resolve maybe high blood pressure. Maybe you're going to hurt less. Your knees and your back and your neck may hurt less. Maybe you can be more mobile now as a result of it. And all of those things go into this syndrome, whatever this is, this condition, this state of being in morbid obesity, whatever you want to call that, all right? So the interesting thing is, that's, you know, when I had a weight loss surgery, that's what it was called. Weight loss surgery, to lose weight, all right? Now, to my knowledge, and as I've seen on my wall, because when I posted this question, a couple of very knowledgeable people pointed out that they struggle with lymphedema and lymphedema, which is a totally different thing. Weight loss surgery, to my knowledge, does not address that or treat that, okay? And so these people, Janice being one, and Sarah Bramblett being another, mentioned that, hey, you know, people look at me and judge me and say that I'm obese because I look a certain way because I struggle with lymphedema or lymphedema, excuse me if I am mispronouncing it. I've been known to mispronounce things before. So, but again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not addressing that, but I'm saying, isn't that interesting? See, so people's definition of obesity, I would say society's, tends to be how you look. If you look bigger than a certain size, then therefore you are obese. And if you look much bigger than a certain size, then you are somehow morbidly obese, without addressing the fact that the use of the word morbid is not a descriptor to describe that you are disgusting. And yet that's what a lot of people, oh, they're morbidly obese. They're disgustingly obese. No, that is not what that word means. That word morbid means it will kill you. All of the stuff that goes into this disease, or whatever you want to call it, this condition, this syndrome, this host of problems that we have, will kill us if it goes untreated, unaddressed, unacknowledged, recognized, right? Respected, whatever word you want to put in there. All right. So again, not a doctor. So I'm not going to talk about, you know, the merits of calling obesity a disease or not calling it a disease. I'm saying, look, society has its own definition, and it's based on how we look. We may also have our own definition based on how we look. And that's the shame here, you see, because instead of it just being a physical condition, haven't I always talked about the fact that this is emotional, mental, and spiritual as well? What about that stuff? That's what I'm here to talk about, okay? I'm not here to say that it's a physical disease. Let's let the doctors who are meeting this week, all of the bariatric professionals, the nurses, you know, the bariatric coordinators, the experts, the psychologists, all those people that are meeting in New Orleans this week to talk about the disease of obesity and the treatment of that disease, let's let them talk about that. I want to talk about how it makes us feel to be the people that are walking in those shoes. Let's talk about that for a minute, because I don't know about you. I don't like the word obesity. I hated the word obesity. And I realized at one point it was kind of like giving up. That's how I felt. I felt like I was giving up and saying, all right, call it whatever you want if you'll just help me. If you insist on calling it obesity, morbid obesity, fine. If it will get me help, fine, call it what you want. Oh, but I hated that word. I threw up a little in my mouth every time I said it. Obesity, like spitting. There's nothing to celebrate. Obesity week. Let's have a society. Really? Now look, there are people doing good work. That's not what I'm talking about. But what I'm saying is it can be really, really hard to get your mouth around that word as if it's a good thing. Don't you agree? You know, I mean, nobody's sitting here celebrating, waving a flag going, yay me, yay team, give me an O, give me a B, give me an E, I mean, really? Are we really going to sit in the stands and cheer? So, so there are a lot of people doing hard work by calling it what it is and attacking it, addressing it as a disease so that we can get help for people who are being judged by the disease. But when it comes right down to it, how we each feel about ourselves and our condition, I think, carries a lot more weight than what we call it. That's just my opinion on that. So I think sometimes that, like me, I felt like I was being forced to raise my hand, and that was the only way I was going to get help, was to finally admit, okay, all right, I'm less than. That's what I decided. I'm less than. All right, I'm a loser. I'm lazy. I put every word I could in there if it would just get me help. Call it what you want, all right? All I know is I feel fat, but whatever. I'm sick and I'm tired and I need help. So call it obesity if you want, right? And that felt terrible. And I felt like I was doing chin-ups on the curb. So I don't know, is it important to call it obesity as a disease or not? Does that stop us from getting help? Does that reduce us, our value, our personal value? Do we feel worse about ourselves by having to call it that in order to get help? I don't know. As you can tell, the show is kind of like, I don't have the answers. It's really more of a discussion. It's really more of a, what do you guys think? I don't have answers for you guys, okay? I just know how I feel. I know what I see, and it doesn't feel good, And I know a lot of us suffer. A lot of us really, really hurt because of this condition, whatever you want to call it, it's a problem. Whatever you call it, it's a problem, right? Now, I know a lot of people hate labels, like I mentioned earlier, okay? Because people feel that to be labeled is to be limited, or to have to be fit into a box, or, to be made less than, or to be said, because you're reduced to whatever will fit on that label, and you are the totality of that thing as a person, right? I do understand that. So they feel less empowered to do something about it, because now all of a sudden they're mashed down into this category with everybody else. And I know that other people accept it and celebrate it because it means for them that they will get help. And the question is, if you feel labeled, are you less likely to get help? If you are labeled, are you more likely to get help? Or vice versa, right? If you reject a label, are you more likely to go out and get help because you rejected the label? Or if you accept the label, are you less likely because you're going to say, I did this to myself? This is crazy stuff, don't you think? All right. I just want to know how we get our arms around this really huge problem. And I mean that literally and figuratively. What is it going to take to get help? To get help, seek help, accept help, and do the work. What is it going to take for us? Especially when we're judging ourselves far more harshly than anyone else ever could, I think. All right. And then you add the word morbid in there. Oh my God. Morbid. Oh my God. Nail in the coffin? Can you say that? Right? I'm lousy. I'm disgusting. I'm not worth anything. I did this to myself. It's a death sentence. How could I go into the doctor's office and ask to get help for my morbid obesity when I did this to myself? I'm killing myself. Right? How many of us have gotten there? I'm killing myself, and I'm going into the doctor's office saying, help me stop killing myself, doctor. Wow, there's so much more to it than that. Yet, isn't that where we go? Because that's where we feel judged, and that's what society wants us to believe, and that's what we believe about ourselves. You did this to yourself. How dare you go ask for help? You don't deserve help. Stop. Push away from the table. Stop eating, right? Stop killing yourself. So does the word morbid, does the application of that word, is that more of a descriptor of the person than it is of the condition or the state of affairs being grim? This is powerful stuff, don't you guys think? So that's what I wanted to talk about today, you guys. Do we judge ourselves more harshly than society does, or even our doctors? Do we believe that calling it a disease makes us less responsible? Isn't that the fear a lot of people have? The minute you call it a disease, you're not responsible anymore? Really? I don't know. I feel pretty responsible for treating my physical, mental, emotional, spiritual condition. I'm responsible for that. Do we feel more justified to be miserable if someone says it's a disease? Do we feel more judged if it's not a disease? It's tricky business. So here's what I think. I think we need to come to our own conclusions, obviously, about what we think about obesity and how it affects us and everything. But I would like to encourage everyone here who joins me to stop judging yourself harshly, to stop being ashamed, to stop feeling like you're less than, to stop feeling like you're lazy or you deserve this or whatever else. Put all of that stuff aside and say, you know what? However I got here, I'm done being here. What can I do to get out of here? And own it. Just own the parts that you can. Do what you can do, realizing that there are some areas over which you have no control. Those things look like lymphedema, things like that, which is swelling, which is, I don't know how to describe it, but it's horrible. It's a horrible, horrible complication. You know, wow, I don't wish that on anybody. Let's start addressing people as people instead of a weight, a number on a scale, a number on a chart. All right, you guys. So I think my question for you is, does it matter what other people think? Yes or no? You have to decide. Do you need people to concur with you, to agree with you, to call it a disease in order for you to feel justified to get help or not? Are you responsible for treating your condition? Yes or no? Only you know the answer to that. Let's see here. I think that until we come to terms with how we view ourselves, we're going to be really, really hard pressed to get better as a society and as a community and as a people and as individuals. And I think that it's hard to educate society at large if we don't educate ourselves first. If we don't change our own opinions, if we don't change our own feelings and beliefs, it's going to be really hard to change other people's, don't you think? Until we stop judging ourselves, we're going to have a hard time seeking treatment, feeling that we deserve treatment because we're judging ourselves. And then how likely are other people to support our need for treatment if we're already saying we don't deserve it? Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? We have to be accountable for treating our condition. We do. You know, we have to own it. We have to do what we can do, or else we're going to have a really hard time getting better. That's really it. And this conversation is going to go on for a long, long, long time, far longer than I'm going to be here talking about this stuff. But it matters. It's so vital because we're talking about lives. Every single one of us that's watching this show, that's going to share it with somebody else that's suffering and struggling. It affects all of us. And it affects, if we are not dealing with the disease of obesity ourselves, or whatever you want to call it, the problem, the condition, the ravages of obesity, if we're not dealing with it, but we know someone who is, doesn't it affect us negatively? Don't we worry about their health? Don't we worry about them dying? Don't we worry about them hurting? And I think that's what this is all about. We're hurting. And that doesn't feel good. So I don't think that we're going to, settle the score today and figure out whether this is a disease or not. And I think in the final analysis, what I want for you guys is this, to say, who cares if it's a disease or not? I don't care what JAMA says, the Journal of American Medical Association, whatever, JAMA. I don't care what they say. I don't care if the doctor thinks it's a disease or not. I don't care if you think it's a disease or not. It's a problem. And you are worthy of getting help for that problem, and you are worthy of working hard to the best of your ability to treat that problem. That's what this show is all about today and always. That's what recovery looks like. Recovery, not recovered. Recovery, which means ongoing. I have to treat my condition, my problem, my disease every single day. And thank you, God, I have relief. I do have relief. And I wish that for you as well. But recovery is something that you choose. Something you choose to do, not because you finally give up, but because you say, I'm worthy of every good thing. Yeah? So that's about it. That's the totality of it. I'm going to look at your comments, and then I'm going to let you guys go because, as ever, it is late, late, late. So let me scroll back through here. I'm so glad that you guys are here. Let's see here. You feel sad. So when I talk about obesity, you feel sad. Diana, it means a lot of bad things. With morbid, it's twice as bad. Ouch, right? I'm happy you're here, Blanca. Thank you so much for being here. I think the word is shaming, Sarah says. I only use that word when talking about my BMI. I lost half my body weight and still am considered to be on the edge of obesity. Wow. This is really powerful stuff, isn't it? Oh, you found me. Hi, Mom. I missed you here earlier. All right. I wouldn't consider it a disease, but more of an addiction. Interesting, Shannon. So do you think that all people who suffer from obesity have an addiction problem? I'm curious. I don't know the answer to that. I'm just curious. I'm throwing that out there. It has to be a personal choice. You have to find your why, because when you do, nothing will stop you. When you do, nothing will stop you once you figure out the why, you think. But what if you don't find the why? Can you still treat your problems? I'm wondering, because I know sometimes I struggle to know the why. I just know the what. And so I'm just curious, what if I don't know the why? Can anything stop me from getting better? I'm just throwing that out there for something to posit, something to consider. It gives an excuse. So Shannon, you feel like by calling it a disease. So your position is, hey, if I label it as a disease, then it's now an excuse for what? People not to have to take it seriously or not to have to treat it, not to accept personal responsibility or accountability for it, because they'll say, oh, there's nothing I can do. It's out of my hands. It's not my fault, right? Is that where you're coming from? Because there's a lot of power to that. And guess what? There's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of us who are not going to accept responsibility for our actions, our behaviors, or take the consequences of our actions and behaviors. And I think this is where we have to separate the stuff over which we have influence and the stuff over which we don't. The stuff for which we have responsibility and the stuff for which we don't. You know, there's genetics that play a role. There's our medical condition and all kinds of stuff. And then there's the role that we play in feeding that, making ourselves sicker. And do we blame ourselves for making ourselves sicker? I wouldn't, because I just say, if you're talking about an addiction, for example, obviously a lot of us feel like we can't do better. And, you know, we feel helpless and we feel hopeless and we feel out of control. So I think you're right to bring that up. And I think that's what a lot of people believe as very black and white. You know, it's an excuse or it's justification or rationalization to not have to do anything. And I think in some cases, you're right. A lot of people will use that as an excuse to not have to get better. I wonder if you're looking at, you know, as a percentage of the population that is struggling with obesity, what percentage would you say would view it as an excuse, and what percentage would you view it as being empowered to go get help and get better? I'm just throwing it out there. I don't have any black and white answers to that, but it is something to consider when we're talking about something as big as the problem of obesity. So, all right, heavy stuff. Thanks for that, Mama. So I'm going to let you guys go, and I'm really grateful that you're here. As usual, this was maybe an unusual program today, but something that weighed heavily on my heart. And really, at the end of the day, what I wish for you, as for all of us, is that whatever it takes to seek help, to get help, and to do whatever you can to get better and feel better and reclaim as much of your health as you can. I would encourage you guys to do that. That's the reason I do this show, is because I want you to know that you have the power to reclaim a lot more of your life than you think you do. And on that note, I'm going to encourage you all to have courage, seek peace, embrace joy, and above all, choose and live your recovery from obesity, food addiction, and life. Remember, you can't stop feeding what's eating you if you don't know what's eating you. Thank you guys for being here. Take care, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.